The NSA, the FBI, CIA, DARPA, letters, acronyms of death, acronyms of subterfuge. We're ruled by acronyms. I have to continually ask myself, how does one sustain hope and have a positive mental attitude when things are so quickly falling to pieces? It's just a cheerful little rant. Cheerful that ExxonMobil is creating jobs to make America great again by opening oil refineries down in the Gulf Coast. Drill, baby, drill. Spill and drill. That's what the corporations are. Why don't they just have an honest name? We're the Spill and Drill Corporation, or the Drill and Spill Corporation. And we make money by drilling and spilling. I think they have an issue with soiling themselves. And at what point is it too late? At what point does it become futile? Have we reached that point? Or perhaps that's why humans were put here, as a destructive force to completely annihilate things and then start over again. I don't know. I told you it was a happy rant. This is philosophical questions. I think the worst epidemic of our times right now is loneliness. And I think that although technology has brought us close together, there are more lonely people than ever before. And a lot of this is self-imposed isolation, electronic isolation, keeping people at a distance, not really venturing outside to risk interaction in the real world. There is a tendency with all the craziness going on to stick your head in the sand and go bury yourself and turn off everything and wait for the end. There's so many broken and left out humans in this world, forgotten, passed off as unimportant. There's so many left behind in the race for advancing technology, left behind by people they thought that loved them. And I think of the vast pool of creative talent that is lying fallow is simply because of the economic system we find ourselves in, and how any sort of moderating influence on capitalism has been fought tooth and nail successfully. And don't we love to categorize people by generation, by the color of somebody's skin, by their ethnicity, by their religion? We love to separate people. It's what we do best as a culture. And we continue down that path of judgment. I think millennials are a great generation and have the potential to turn things around. But it's not going to be easy. But I find this disheartening tendency, and not just because I'm old, but because I've noticed, even on a Lee Camp show, I love Lee. I've been a fan for years, and one of his sketches, he was making fun of old people, and it was sort of blatant ageism. It was more than a light-hearted joke, and he pissed off a lot of older people. Not so much me, because I didn't really take it personally, but it did distress me to see members of, somebody that's very progressive, like Lee, actually falling prey to ageism and the stereotypes that go with it. It's very easy to do as a young person. I'm sorry, I'm old. I got old. I'm still here because I didn't die. Sorry. It's not like I deliberately set the world on fire. It's not like anybody from one particular generation is responsible for what is in essence a class struggle. And while our bought and paid for media and socialization tends to separate people into different groups, men, women, old, young, liberal, conservative, radical. These are all just labels, and labels that mean very little. You may mean very little when you start talking to people who are labeled as this particular group or that particular group, and find that in essence we're not that different. I'm the first to admit that some in my generation were horrible. The whole 80s yuppie go thing. But a lot of my generation did not partake in that. Personally, my wife and I lived in a one-bedroom apartment in the 80s, and I was a starving artist, and we rode bicycles. So it's very hard for me to relate as a member of the left who was known to frequent many protests and fought all this shit really hard, as many in my generation are continuing to do. Don't separate us out. Don't separate anybody out that's on your side, because all that does is weaken the cause. And this thing is gotten so large, this government control, the surveillance state that is completely out of control. Boy, now Julian's really pissing them off. So you don't know where to turn in everything's a joke. The institutions are all gone, dead or dying. It's an age of selfishness, of diminishing resources, fights over diminishing resources. Having vast quantities of wealth siphoned into the war machine. It's an old game. It's been going on since the beginning of time. And in my lifetime, I've seen the pendulum sway back and forth between the narrative that is popular at that particular time with the people that run everything. What is it about power that makes people brutal? That makes them blind to the suffering of others? Makes them blind to the suffering of animals? I think the saddest thing that I've ever seen in my life, I wanted to cry. I was in a small town not too far from here. It was many years ago. And somebody had roped a calf into the back of their truck. It was on its way to the slaughterhouse, and it was crying for its mother. That hit me like a ton of bricks. And I looked at these people that were transporting this poor creature to its demise and thought, are they horrible, bad people, did they realize the suffering they're causing? Because they were completely oblivious to this animal's suffering. And so many are. That these are sentient beings. We don't have the right if I'm a little bit down tonight, I thought, well, I don't have anyone to talk to tonight. It's late at night. It's quiet. So I thought I'd talk to my YouTube friends. And all I see happening now is entrenchment of cruelty. No attempt to slow down and become more compassionate. We are, as creatures, incredibly self-centered, and yet we are capable of great love for others and for creatures and for nature. That's the part of us that society tries to beat out from the time we're little kids. You're not supposed to feel those feelings. You're not supposed to expose your vulnerabilities, because then somebody will take advantage of you. And sadly, that is most often the case. But there can't be any compassion if there isn't any vulnerability. And if we're afraid to show our vulnerability to each other, our weaknesses, then we become less than human. We become slaves to competition, unable to cooperate with other sentient beings, and losing an intrinsic part of what it means to be human. When we desecrate the earth for money, we lose our humanity. We've structured society in a psychopathic way, and it's on a psychopathic model right now that does not take into consideration others. It's just like when you take a child that's totally selfish, and if you don't teach that child compassion, then that child is going to continue to be completely selfish and self-centered and unconcerned about the welfare of others, unable to feel that part of their humanity. So this is a very different Vegematic. It's not got funny little things in it. It takes a tremendous amount of effort sometimes to put something together like that. And tonight I just wanted to talk to you folks like I would close friends, because many of you are my close friends. And we have to strive to become more conscious, to become more human, to become more compassionate. It's the only hope. So I'll be back next time with something more lighthearted. I just don't feel like laughing tonight. Be well, my friends.